was 7 when it happened. At that age, fear comes easily. But this wasn't the kind you grow out of. My room wasn't really a bedroom. It had been added onto the house long before we moved in, something between an attic and a storage space. It sat slightly apart from the rest of the rooms, like it didn't quite belong. The ceiling sloped in awkward angles, and the only thing that made it feel like a kid's room was the massive closet built into the wall. Except it wasn't just a closet. You had to climb 3 wooden steps to reach it. The door was a wide sliding panel, and behind it was a cramped space filled with old toys, boxes, and things that didn't have a place anywhere else. It connected directly to the attic. I hated it, but my parents thought it was fun. The first night I heard it, I told myself it was nothing. I just watched a scary movie with my family, the kind that sticks in your head when the lights go out. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying not to think about it. Then, a sharp clatter, plastic hitting wood, from inside the closet. I sat up instantly. Silence. Then again, the unmistakable sound of something spilling, like a container of Legos dumping onto the floor. I didn't check. I ran, straight out of my room, down the hall, into my parents' bedroom. My voice came out broken, panicked, trying to explain. "There's something in my closet." My dad sighed. "There's nothing in your closet." They walked me back, turned on the light, slid the door open. Nothing. Just toys. Just mess. Just imagination. They let me sleep in their room that night. The next day, it felt stupid, childish, embarrassing, until that night, because it happened again. Louder this time, longer. Not just one spill, but a series of shifting, scraping noises, like something moving things around inside. I ran again. My dad was less patient. "Enough," he said. "You're too old for this." But my mom checked the closet the next morning. And this time, there it was. A pile of Legos scattered across the floor, spilled out of the container. Proof. I remember pointing at it, my heart racing. "See? I told you." But she just smiled. It probably fell. Probably. That word didn't comfort me. That night, my dad locked his bedroom door. "No more running in here," he said. I was on my own. I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, completely still, staring at the outline of the closet door. The room felt heavier than usual, like the air itself was waiting. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Then, it happened. A slow, deliberate sound. The closet door sliding open. Not a creak, not an accident. Force. I couldn't breathe. Moonlight poured through my window, stretching across the floor, reaching the closet. And that's when I saw him. A figure, standing inside, perfectly still, watching me. My brain refused to understand it at first. It tried to turn him into something else, shadow, illusion, nightmare. But he moved, and shadows don't move like that. He stepped forward, out of the closet, out of the attic, into my room. I screamed, not just loud, but raw, tearing, the kind of scream that hurts your throat and doesn't stop even when you want it to. He reacted instantly, jumped down the steps, ran, out of my room, out of the house, gone. My mom reached me first. My dad was already chasing after him, but it was too late. The front door was wide open. The night swallowed everything. The police came. They searched the house, the attic, the closet. They found nothing. No name, no face, no explanation. But I knew. He had been there. Not just that night, not just those moments. He had been living in that space above my room, listening, waiting, watching me sleep. I'm older now, but sometimes when it's quiet, I still hear it, that faint plastic shifting sound from somewhere just out of sight, and I still wonder, how long had he been there before I noticed? They told the story like it was luck. I don't think it was. I think it was something else, something closer to instinct, or maybe the feeling right before you die, when your body realizes it before your mind does. It happened on their first date. Everything about it was normal at first. Awkward conversations, forced laughs, the kind of silence that isn't uncomfortable yet. but could become that way if it lasted too long. So he suggested something spontaneous, something different, a midnight hike up Provo Canyon. She agreed. That decision almost killed them both. They drove out under a moonless sky, the kind where the darkness feels complete, like the world has been erased beyond the reach of your vision. No streetlights, no other cars, just the quiet stretch of road leading into the mountains. When they got there, they left the car and started walking. At first, it felt peaceful. The sound of their footsteps on dirt, the faint rustle of trees shifting in the night breeze, the stars above them, distant and cold. Then he felt it. A sudden, unexplainable sense of wrongness. Not fear exactly, not yet, just a quiet pressure in his chest telling him something wasn't right. He slowed down. "What is it?" she asked. "Nothing," he said. And that was the mistake. They kept going. The path ahead dipped slightly, leading under a cluster of trees where the darkness thickened into something almost solid. The kind of darkness that swallows detail, where shapes blur into nothing. The feeling came back, stronger this time. He hesitated again. Every instinct told him to stop. But stopping meant admitting something was wrong, and there was nothing to explain why. No sound, no movement, no reason. So he stepped forward, and his foot hit something, soft, not like dirt, not like rock, something that gave under his weight. He froze. The world seemed to go completely silent around them, like even the wind had stopped to listen. "What was that?" she whispered. He didn't answer, because he didn't want to know. Because whatever it was, he already knew it wasn't something he should touch again. The feeling inside him surged, sharp and overwhelming now, turning into pure, undeniable fear. "Let's go," he said. She didn't argue. They turned around immediately, walking faster than before, then faster still until it became something close to running. Neither of them looked back. Neither of them spoke. They just needed distance. Distance from that spot, from whatever lay on that path, from whatever might be watching them from the trees. They didn't stop until they reached the car. They drove away without saying a word. And eventually, life moved on. They got married. Years passed. The night became a strange memory, unsettling but unfinished, like a sentence that never reached its end. Until one night, everything clicked into place. They were watching an interview on TV. A man sat calmly across from the interviewer, speaking in a tone that didn't match the things he was describing. Ted Bundy. When he was asked about the moment he came closest to being caught, he smiled slightly before answering. He described a night in Provo Canyon, a girl he had lured there, how he had killed her, how he was still in the area when he heard people approaching along the trail. He said he hid in the trees, just in time. Then he watched as a man walked forward in the dark and stepped directly onto the body. Watched as both of them hesitated, and then left. For no reason he could understand. Bundy said that was the moment he thought he might be caught, but they never turned around. They never looked into the trees. They never saw him. The room went silent. The couple didn't speak. They didn't need to, because they both knew. They had been there. That was their night. That was the path. That was the thing he stepped on. And somewhere just a few feet away in the darkness, they had refused to face. A man had been standing perfectly still, watching them, close enough to hear them breathe, close enough to kill them if they had stayed just a little longer, if he had looked down, if either of them had turned around. They wouldn't have lived long enough to remember it. And maybe that's the worst part. Not that they almost died, but that they walked away without ever realizing how close death was standing behind them. The library stayed open until 2 a.m. It was meant for people like me, people who waited until the last possible moment to finish something important, convincing themselves they worked better under pressure. That night, I told myself I just needed a few more hours. The building was small, but the real workspace was underground. Everyone called it the Stacks. It was a basement level filled with endless rows of bookshelves, long, narrow aisles, and scattered study desks pressed against the walls. By the time it hit 11 p.m., almost everyone had left. Almost. There was one other guy sitting a few desks away from me. I remember noticing him earlier, just enough to register that I wasn't completely alone. That mattered more than I realized. At first, everything was quiet. Too quiet, but not in a way that bothered me. Just the occasional hum of the building, the faint buzz of lights overhead. I was focused, typing, flipping through notes, trying to ignore the clock. Then I heard it. The sound of pages flipping, fast, aggressive, like someone was running their hand through a book, forcing the pages to snap one after another. I paused, annoyed more than anything, and glanced toward the far end of the room. No one, just shelves. I went back to work. The sound continued, steady, rhythmic, too loud to ignore. After a few minutes, I sighed and pushed my chair back. Whoever it was, they were being ridiculous. I stood up and started walking toward the direction of the noise. 3 steps in, it stopped, instantly, like it had never been there. I stood still, listening, nothing. I felt stupid, so I turned around and went back to my desk. For about 10 minutes, everything was normal again. Then it came back, louder. This time it sounded like a massive book, thick pages whipping violently one after another. The sound echoed through the room, bouncing off the shelves, impossible to pinpoint. I looked over at the other guy. He heard it too. I could see it in the way he tensed, the way his head tilted slightly, trying to locate it. He stood up. "Do you hear that?" he asked. "Yeah." We didn't say anything else, we just started walking. He moved down one side of the shelves, I took the other. The sound grew louder as we approached, like we were closing in on it. It was right there, right ahead. We turned into the aisle at the same time. Empty. No one, no book out of place, nothing moving. The sound cut off again. We stood there for a second, both of us trying to make sense of it. But there was nothing to explain. No doors had opened, no footsteps. No one could have left without us seeing. We slowly walked back. I told myself it had to be something mechanical, a vent, a fan, something shifting in the building. It had to be. We sat down, and the moment we did, it started again. Violent, close, too close. I turned my head. The sound was right next to him, not across the room, not in the shelves, right next to his chair. Like someone invisible was standing beside him, flipping through pages inches from his face. He didn't hesitate. He shoved everything into his bag in one motion. "I'm leaving," he said. Not loud, not panicked, just certain. I didn't argue. I grabbed my stuff and followed him immediately, the sound still tearing through the silence behind us, relentless, unnatural. We didn't look back, not once. We ran up the stairs, out of the basement, out of the building, into the cold night air. Only then did it stop. I never went back down to the stacks at night again, even when there were other people, even when it was full. Because once you hear something like that, something that reacts to you, something that waits until you sit still, you stop thinking of a place as empty, and you start wondering what else is there that you just can't see. The ocean at night doesn't feel like water. It feels like a void. Like if you fell in, you wouldn't just drown, you'd disappear. That's something I didn't understand until that trip. It was supposed to be simple. Just me and my wife, 2 days out in the North Atlantic on our fishing boat. The first day was perfect. Calm water, decent catch, nothing unusual. That night we sat inside the cabin playing cards, music humming softly in the background, the kind of quiet that feels earned. The second day was slower. By the time night came again, the ocean felt different. Still calm, but heavier somehow, like something had settled into it. We turned the music off, just the sound of the water, just the wind. Then we heard it. A motor. Faint at first, somewhere out in the darkness. That alone was strange. We were far from shore, far from any regular traffic. Boats didn't just pass by out there in the middle of the night. The sound got closer. We stepped outside, and then we saw him. A small motorboat drifting toward us. No lights, none. Just a dark shape cutting through darker water. He stopped directly in front of us, close enough that I could see him clearly under the dim glow of our deck light. Middle-aged, beard, baseball cap pulled low. His face looked empty, Not angry, not friendly, just blank. I called out to him, "Hey, you need help?" He nodded slightly. "Got any spare gas?" His voice was calm, too calm. I told him no, asked if he was running low, if he needed a ride back toward shore. He shook his head. "I've got enough." That didn't make sense. If he had enough, why ask? The silence stretched between us. He just stood there, looking at me, not speaking, not moving, just staring. The kind of stare that makes you aware of your own breathing. My wife shifted behind me. I could feel her unease without even turning around. Trying to break the tension, I asked, "You been out here long?" He let out a quiet chuckle. Not amused, not natural, like I had said something he understood differently. Then he asked, "You folks have a good catch tonight?" I told him no. Another silence. The ocean around us felt endless. No lights, no land, just us and him. I tried one more time. "How are you even navigating out here with no lights?" He didn't answer, just smiled slightly. Then he turned his boat. "Nice meeting you," he said, and drifted back into the darkness until he was gone. Completely gone. No sound, no light, nothing. My wife was the first to speak. That wasn't right. I didn't argue. I turned off our lights. We moved north, quietly, just in case. Sometime around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound I'll never forget. My wife screaming. Not startled, not scared, screaming like she was looking at something she couldn't understand. I shot up and saw him, standing at the foot of our bed, inside the cabin, the same man, the same blank face, watching us. I lunged toward him, but he was already moving, fast, too fast. He slipped out of the cabin before I could reach him. Seconds later, the sound of a motor starting. That same motor. I ran outside, but all I could see was darkness swallowing him again as the boat sped off, like he had never been there. We didn't wait. We didn't question it. We turned the boat around and headed straight back to shore. Reported everything. The man, the boat, the intrusion. Nothing came of it. No reports, no sightings, no explanation. Sometimes I try to make sense of it. Maybe he was planning to rob us, maybe worse. But there's one thing I can't explain. If he had enough gas, if he didn't need help, then why did he come to us in the first place? And how long was he out there, in the dark, watching us before we ever saw him?